And greetings and welcome to the QCast. This is season 4, and boy, a milestone episode that I just realized before I hit record, and that's episode 50. So appreciate all of you that have followed along the journey of season 4 on the QCast. It's been a fun season, and we're at that point of the year here in April where there are some coaching changes taking place that are impacting Division 3 schools. And one of those is at Berry College, where Mick Hedgepeth left for Division 2, University of Alabama, Huntsville. And obviously, anytime a head coach leaves, the dominoes fall, and it creates an opportunity for somebody. And I've got one of the gentlemen here where opportunity has knocked. Matt Richter, the new head coach of the Berry College Vikings. Matt, it's great to have you on the QCast. Congratulations, and how are you doing?
I'm good, Bob. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. I think you've used a word that I've been thinking of a whole lot already this week, an opportunity. I'm just completely grateful, excited, hopeful for the opportunity I've been given here by Barry, and excited to be on with you. I love watching, keep up with the QCast quite a bit, and a lot of D3 Hoops media. Try to do my best to stay abreast, and appreciate everything that you do for us and giving us a great platform.
Yeah, appreciate you've been really supportive of the QCast. Appreciate that. I think you helped connect me with Mick a year ago when
I
I
think
had
so.
him on,
Yeah.
and so thanks
Yep.
for everything you guys have done. And I wish Mick well, by the way. When I heard the news, I think my first thought was like, wow, that's a big loss for Division 3. I think Mick has been
Sure.
great at many stops in Division 3. And before we move on, maybe just Matt, if you could talk about Mick and kind of what he's meant to you, and kind of what he's meant to Division 3 before we talk about you.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. No, Mick has been instrumental in my development personally the last 2 years, and absolutely professionally. He made me a better person. He absolutely made me a better coach. And I think our players on our teams these past 2 years would echo that. He's somebody that is selfless, puts other people first, and that kind of automatically impacts those around him. So I think you said it best, a huge loss for Division 3. I'm extremely excited for him and for his family. Alabama Huntsville is a great program,
Yeah,
has been for a long time at the Division 2 level, and kind of regionally down here in the South, it's very well known. And he grew up not far from there, so a really cool
right.
opportunity for him. And I think it speaks. To be honest with you, I think it speaks very highly of Barry and of Division 3 that
Yep.
Mick didn't have Division 2 experience. Mick didn't work necessarily in that network. So for him to get that opportunity, I think says a lot about the places he's been, about the level, specifically Division 3 he's been at the most recently. But no, I couldn't have been more grateful these last 2 years for him to give me a shot down here at Barry, or to come back to Barry. And like I said, just excited. I'm an Alabama Huntsville fan now for sure, and,
Yeah.
and excited to continue to follow him.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. He had you guys had two big seasons the last couple years here, that the 25-3 season, and then the 19-10 this year, where you were 13-1 in the league. You were 14-0 in the league the year before. You've done amazing things. I'm just curious how all this played out. So at some point, in the last few weeks, you find out that he's leaving. And was this a situation where, like, how did this play out? Did you have to interview for this? Was this a, hey, we're tapping you on the shoulder, and you're our guy and you're ready, or whatever you can share about how this played out,
Sure.
if you would.
Yeah, yeah. What I would say, one thing that became clear to me when we knew that there was going to be a coaching change here at Barry is the folks at Barry. This is something I really appreciate and really support. The folks at Barry, their number one concern was our current players and our current program.
Right.
What's going to put that group in the best position? Um, can what can help them the most, and just keep all of those guys knowing, whether they're returning players or incoming players, what can solidify in their minds, hey, like, we're the number one priority in the program. And once that vision became clear to me, which I wasn't surprised at. But once I kind of figured out that's how people were thinking, to be honest, I would have been fairly supportive and okay with the decision no matter what, because those guys are all also
Right.
my first priority and thought when this happened. So, um, I would just say that there were a number of conversations and meetings and discussions here, and I was fortunate enough to wind up getting an offer and an opportunity, and it's something that I'm going to take it and run with it, and just really excited for what's ahead.
Want to go through your background in just a little bit because it's such an interesting background and all the steps and the stops that have led to this point. But one thing you said to me off the air that stuck with me, if you don't mind me sharing, was you're like, I feel so lucky to have gotten my first head coaching opportunity at a place like this, is what you said. And
Yeah, yeah,
it's such a fair statement because Barry, as a school and as an athletic department and as a men's basketball program, facilities, the whole thing. I mean, you really have a pretty wonderful setup there, Matt. And I thought that those words rang really true when you said them. Talk a little bit about just, the opportunity and how fortunate you feel to be given this chance at Barry.
yeah. Well, it means the world to me. My first experience with Division III um, was, we'll call it part-time assistant at Barry, but in
Right.
reality, it was a volunteer assistant at Barry,
Yep.
and that was able to transition into some other opportunities at Barry. I was a graduate assistant at Barry, and this is actually with a previous head coach to Mick. So I came to Barry um, in the summer slash fall of 2018 with Mitch Cole, who at the time had also just recently accepted the head position at Barry. So that was a great experience to come on staff with Coach Cole and his staff and be a new staff. That was a really cool experience for me. But it was my first experience at Division III. It was my first experience at Barry College, and I'll never forget when I was driving here, not to jump ahead, but was working at the University of New Orleans at the time, a Division I school in the Southland Conference. And I remember driving to Barry, and to be honest, I can't even remember if I knew it was a volunteer role or capacity that I would be in. But I remember driving on campus and saying, whatever happens, you can't say no to this place. I mean, just looking around at the
Right.
campus, obviously the athletic facilities. So it is very clear when you step onto campus at Barry that it's a special place, that the community is extremely proud of what they have here, and the education that we're able to offer our students and our student athletes. So no, to go back to your question and what it means to me, it's extremely humbling, and I completely I think understand and appreciate the weight of the
Yeah.
moment, and that this opportunity could have been given to a lot of different folks. And again, I'm just thankful and excited that I was somebody it was given to. And so, one thing that I'm completely conscious of right now and will continue to be, there's a lot of things that I don't know what I don't know as a first time head coach. And even with that, I couldn't be at a better place in terms of the resources and people I have to lean on here at Barry. Our colleagues, other coaches within the athletic department here at Barry. One thing that is kind of unique to men's basketball, there's been a little bit of turnover in men's basketball. A lot of sports at Barry, coaches have been here a long time, which
Right.
I think
Yep.
speaks very highly of the institution. And so I have so many great people and resources that I can and definitely will lean on for help and guidance. And one that comes to mind, I can't mention everybody, but our head women's coach, Thomas Johnson, initially came to Barry as a men's assistant and then got an opportunity to hop over on the women's side as a head coach. And he's already been, even when I was an assistant at Barry, a fantastic resource, and somebody I just enjoy being around. That's the biggest thing when I think of Barry and the people I get to work with, is just enjoy being around them.
Right.
And so very fortunate in that regard.
Your background's really interesting. I think people will find it interesting, especially, I think the coaches that tune into this QCast and maybe that some of the people trying to get head jobs right now. And it's such a good example of kind of how hard you have to work and how open you have to be to different things. I'm going to try to start at Butler. So you attended
Yeah,
Butler, right? So you went to Butler. Now, I don't know where you grew up. Are you an Indiana guy? Are you from Indiana, or where are you from?
Indiana guy, South Bend, born and raised.
Okay. Were you a Notre Dame guy? You got to be, right? South Bend?
Was big Notre Dame guy. Grew up just a couple miles from campus at Notre Dame. My older brother actually was a student athlete, played baseball at Notre Dame. And I think you have, if I'm not mistaken, you have some Purdue connections.
My wife went to Purdue. So check out my
Okay.
wife's siblings. Is my wife went to Purdue. One brother went to Notre Dame. Another brother
Oh wow.
went to Indiana. So
Okay.
they really kind of had it covered there a little bit.
You guys had it covered except for Butler.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's from
Yeah.
Terre Haute. So
Okay.
I have a strong respect for the state of Indiana, let's just say.
Yeah. Yeah. And both my parents went to Purdue is where I was getting at with that. So yeah. Um, but yeah, um, started at Butler, graduated from Butler, and even it's funny, I knew in high school, I was in high school at kind of peak Brad Stevens Butler Final Four teams, and
Yeah.
just became a diehard fan, for lack of a better term, and followed those teams, and knew I wanted to be in coaching. And knew that that would be as a student manager in college, and even my first year at Butler, wasn't able to help in that capacity. So as a freshman at Butler, I found a local high school and helped coach a team there. And then my sophomore year at Butler, it's like that's what I considered my first big break, right? Was I was allowed to be a student manager
Yeah.
starting as a sophomore at Butler. And so no, fantastic experience with the players and coaching staff at Butler. And we were transitioning to the Big East. So my first year would have been as a manager in 13, 14. Butler's first year in the Big East, and then
Right.
finished that out. I graduated from Butler in 2016.
So Butler, you're the student manager for your final 3 years. It's really cool as your freshman year, like you found a way to coach a local high school freshman team. Like, how did you find your way into that deal?
I think a lot of emails, really, just emails and phone calls. Knew I wanted to be around hoops, knew I wanted to be in the gym, and even that was obviously a very different experience than what managing would have been. So that was fun. Like in some ways, kind of got to cut my teeth a little bit. And yeah, I do want to coach, right? Like I loved being on the floor. So that was kind of like a quick litmus test almost for me. And yeah, loved it. Great experience.
And then after you graduate from Butler, I'm trying to make sure I have my steps right. At some point, I know you were at Barry. Did you go to White River Valley High School right after Butler? Was that the next
I
step?
did. I
Okay, so
did, and not far from Terre Haute in Southwest Indiana down there. Yeah.
okay, so you coach a high school JV team as the head coach. So
Yep.
you were the head coach of the JV team. You were also a teacher there. What was
hmm
how long were you at White River Valley High School, and what was that experience like?
Yeah, I was there for 1 year, and that was what my bachelor's was in, right? Secondary education, with a social studies concentration. I taught three different classes, so I was prepping for three different classes and three pretty much different age groups of teaching kids throughout the day, and then the basketball experience on the side. It was a really good experience. It was a completely new community to me. Um, One thing I would say that jumps out about one thing, Indiana high school basketball. I mean, they
Yeah,
still have the fever, especially in Southern
absolutely.
Indiana. It was great. So many cool gyms.
Yep.
Have a ton of cool stories that year. We played at Larry Bird's high school at
Oh
Springs
wow.
Valley High School, right? And they got the Celtics jerseys and the Raptors up there. But great experience in White River Valley. Had a strong basketball tradition, particularly in the 90s, and some really good teams and individual players. But I just learned how to kind of fit in and make connections with new people. I didn't have any ties to that community, and quickly made some, and had some really good friendships that I keep to this day. And so that was a fun experience. It was at times challenging. You're thrown into the fire as a 22, 23-year old teacher, teaching seniors in high school, or 17, 18 years old, whatever it is. And so that was fun to get that professional experience.
Well, one question, and I think before we get to the next stop along the way, is just you clearly knew you wanted to be a basketball coach. You said
Yeah.
like coming in like your freshman year, you tried to be the student manager. You weren't able to get it yet, so you went and coached this high school team in the area, their freshman team. Why, and when did you decide that you wanted to be a basketball coach?
Yeah. I mean, my family is and was a huge sports family growing up. My mom was the real coach of the family before I was born. She was a high school coach in the Chicago area and teacher as well. She became kind of transitioned into a high school administrator, but she, I think, probably is the one responsible for the coaching DNA and coaching blood, but really just from a young age. And I think the honest answer probably to your question is I knew coaching was my best pathway in sports and probably not playing at some different levels quickly after middle and high school particularly. But just that's what our family did. We went to my older brother's games and tournaments and obviously mine as well, and just kind of got the fever early on for it.
And from White River Valley High School, you get a job as the video coordinator at University of New Orleans, a Division I
Yep.
program. How the heck do you get that gig? And tell us a little bit about what you learned in that role.
Yeah, well, in terms of what I learned and how I got it, just the connections and how small the world of coaching is crazy. So the head coach at New Orleans at the time was Mark Schlesinger. He was a Southern Indiana guy. I was just kind of shopping around at the Division I Final Four that year, trying to network and meet different folks. And New Orleans at the time was coming off of a phenomenal year. They made the NCAA tournament, and what that program came from would be a whole other episode in terms of rebounding from Hurricane
Sure.
Katrina and thought they would lose their Division I status. So what Sluss did there is incredible. And then just for him to, he had played in the NCAA tournament 3 weeks before, and he's in the hotel lobby talking to me about White River Valley and the SWIAC conference of Indiana high school basketball. And I'm like, no way. Like, what are the odds of that? So he was just a phenomenal mentor to me, still is. And that staff, he had 3 or 4 Indiana guys on his staff. So I realized, like, tap into your roots. Don't be afraid to ask people for help. Um, and New Orleans and the Southland Conference was a great learning curve for me. Sless empowered his staff so well. And being the video coordinator, I got some really good kind of hands-on tactical experience.
Sure.
They had or do have limitations in terms of coaching on the floor, but was able to do a ton within the scouting department at New Orleans and worked so closely with really their whole staff. And that was awesome. That was a great experience for me again as a really young coach. So yeah, really grateful to Celeste for kind of giving me my first opportunity in college coaching.
And then from there, I believe is when you get the job as an assistant. Your term was kind of volunteerish, right? At Barry,
Yeah,
right? So you go to
yeah,
Barry. I think while you're at Barry, I believe you come out of there with an MBA. So are you going to school
correct.
some at the same? Tell us about kind of that role you had at Barry, the first stop at Barry.
Sure, sure. So I was at Barry 3 years, kind of the first stint, and the second and third years, I was in our MBA program here, our
Gotcha.
Campbell School of Business. Phenomenal program, and yeah, kind of taking class, coaching, and morphing it all together. That was also in the middle of COVID, which obviously was a learning curve for everybody, but had a great 3 year experience at Barry to kind of start out with.
And then I think July 21 is when you get an assistant job at Wabash, right? Under
Yep,
Coach Kyle Brumlett. And well, gosh, I think you were there one season, correct? One season at Wabash,
I was, yep.
and that was the Final Four season. Talk a little bit about your experience at Wabash.
Yeah, so Coach Brummett was the guy who gave me a shot at Wabash, and Coach Pat Sullivan was a longtime assistant with Brum, and they I was thrilled to experience Division III in a different area and a different conference. The North Coast Athletic Conference is one of the premier conferences in D3 historically. I don't know if the numbers still line up this way. I know when I went to Wabash, the two winningest programs all time in Division III at the time were Wittenberg and Worcester in
Yeah.
Wabash's league. So you're playing them
Yep.
4, 5, maybe 6 times a year, depending on how conference tournaments shake out. So I was excited for that. I was excited to make new connections and different connections in kind of the recruiting world. Um, and I got lucky. The team went to the Final Four, had some phenomenal returning talent on that team, and could talk about that team for a long time. But I know Brum and Sully kind of built that thing at Wabash from the ground up. They were on staff together at Defiance College in Ohio, and kind of went to Wabash when that opportunity came up. I think it was probably Brum's 7th or 8th year, something like that, when I came on board in 21, 22. So such a rewarding year because I knew what those guys had put in and what the players had put in too at Wabash. And yeah, had some battles in the NCAA tournament. I think you were at a couple
I
of the
think I
games.
was I think I was at 2 of them.
Yeah,
I think for sure that we were on different sides of one of them.
no
And
doubt.
that game against Illinois Wesleyan at the Shirk Center, I mean, that was intense, wasn't it? Like,
It
just
was. It was.
talk about like being on the bench for a game, all the marbles to go to the Final Four. I mean, I was in the building, you were in the building. I just talk about
Yeah.
your side of that experience.
Yeah, well, I will. I'll rewind a little bit. At the time, and Brum can back this up because I know he hasn't forgotten it. At the time, I think it was a 600-mile rule in terms of buses or flights for the NCAA
That's
tournament.
right.
And Wabash's draw, which we played Barry in the first round of the NCAA tournament,
Right.
the school that I had just left and coached at the year before. But our pod was at Emory in
Yep.
Atlanta that
I
year,
remember that.
and I think we mapped it out, and it was like 587 miles from
They bust
Wabash
you
to
they
Emory.
bust you to Emory.
Yeah, and not to mention how good Barry's team was and how good Emory's team was.
Oh yeah.
And Averett had a great year. Averett took Emory down to the wire in the first round. But the reason I bring that up is it was a special ride with Wabash because we looked around that first weekend at Emory, and we were pretty sure there were more Wabash folks and Emory folks there
I'll
in the
bet there
second round
were.
game,
Yeah, I'll bet there
and
were.
it was incredible. Yeah, the following and passion that Wabash's alums and fans and parents have is awesome, and they made it really easier on us just going to Bloomington Normal there for the second weekend. But no, that environment at IWU and at the Shirk Center is something that I hope I never forget. It was high level basketball.
It
Every
was.
possession mattered. It was intense, and don't know that I've been in too many environments like that. It was special.
It was. It was an incredible game. It's those are those are just intense games. Though you get down to
Yeah,
that Elite Eight
yeah,
round, and there's so much on the line, and it was an intense game. It was a chippy game, and it was just an incredible run by Wabash there. And Coach Sully is now off to be a head coach. Right, he just got a gig, so he's off to be a head
yeah.
coach. And Coach Brummett has done such a great job at Wabash. So great experience for you during that season. And then after Wabash is when you head back to Barry as the assistant coach, and
Yep.
you were the assistant the last 2 seasons. Now you end up getting this head job, and all these stops that I've just mentioned. I guess where I'm going to lead up to is, for those of you following along with this, think of all the stops we just mentioned. He had the student manager gig at Butler, coached the high school team his freshman year at Butler, White River Valley High School, University of New Orleans. We mentioned Barry, Wabash, back to Barry, brings us up to today. And Matt is 30 years old. He's done all this. He's 30 years old right now. And I guess so many lessons in this, Matt, is just that, like, this didn't fall into your lap. if someone's reading Twitter like, oh, they just promoted the assistant they hired from within. The guy
Yeah.
from within has been grinding this thing out for many, many years here. And it's got to feel good. I know that you're just starting, you haven't coached a game yet, but it's got to feel good that when a lot of hard work pays off, right? I mean, can you step back and enjoy this at this moment before the madness starts?
Yeah, a little bit. And I think it's in some ways it has been ironic this week. My phone has been blowing up, and I've been so humbled to hear from so many people. But one thing that I've kind of laughed to myself, people are congratulating me and happy for me, and a lot of these people sending me messages. I'm like, well, you realize you're a huge reason I had this opportunity. So it's kind of a full circle moment. And guys that were players at Butler that I was a manager with or for, and guys that were coaches at Butler, and all the way back that, I needed to mention Bishop Chatard High School as a high school I worked at, and heard
Yeah.
from the head freshman coach this week. And I think he actually gave me a hard time. He said, I don't remember if it was an article. It must have been the article on Barry's website. He said, I read through the background there in your stops. He goes, you never mentioned Bishop Chatard. He's like, we were 19-2 city champs. That wasn't good enough to get a shout out. So that was a funny moment. But no, it's trying not to take a step back because there's a lot of work to do, and we're excited to get to work. But definitely there has been some emotional and kind of some cool reflection moments these last few days for sure.
Bishop Chatard, they did get a mention in your bio on the Wabash website.
Okay.
I'm sure that
Okay.
Wabash, being an Indiana school, was
Yeah.
definitely in fact, Wabash bio even had that. I think your grandfather went to Wabash, right? You're right, 1948 Little Giant grad, correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So that was it was and I actually my grandfather that was on my mom's side passed before I was born. So in some ways that was such a cool and special connection to
Sure.
make that year that I was there. My mom grew up going to football games at Wabash and things like that. But that would be all Brent Harris, the SID at Wabash
Yeah.
extraordinaire.
I
He
just
he's on it.
I
Yeah.
just wanted to give a little love to the Bishop Chatard folks that they did get love, back in a
Good.
past
Okay.
bio. Maybe the Barry folks can sneak that in there. I think that'd be nice. Just a
Good. It would
couple
be.
couple questions, as I know that you're super busy and you got a million things going on right now. You guys had a great team this year, 19-10. Um, Guys that were in the mix that were, in particular, contributors: Blake Campbell, Braxton Benham, Chase Ellis, Jacob Morgan, Riley Costas, Drew Weingarten. These are guys that I think I listed six that
Yeah.
statistically led the way. I know, Matt, in this day and age, that you probably don't have it figured out who exactly is coming and going at this point, but you've got a very talented team that you had last year. So
Yeah.
at this point, where do you go with this in terms of your coming season? You got to get out recruiting, of course, and just talk about the
Absolutely.
construction of your roster and what you're trying to build.
Yeah, yeah. I think we have a built-in advantage in terms of, or I hope that we do, in terms of recruiting and roster construction because of the success that we have had and the
Yeah,
program has had the past 5 or 6 years. And so, I definitely recognize that. I'm so grateful to the current and former Barry players that have really built this thing. Those are some of the cooler conversations this past week. Was some of the guys on the first Barry teams that I was associated with, and like I told those guys, and they brought it up to me. The schedule that we played this past season at Barry was one of the better non-conference schedules in the country.
it sure was.
Um, I think we played 4 teams in the Elite Eight. We played 2 Final Four teams in the 2023 and 2024
Yep.
national champion. And I told some of those guys, if we had that schedule our first year at Barry, there would have been some nerves here. But the program is at a point where, we one through, or I should say, A through Z on our roster. We're just so deep, so talented, and these guys have put in the work, and that kind of breeds winning and kind of builds
Yep.
on itself. So when you talk about recruiting and roster construction, in some obviously myself and the coaching staff that we'll have here on board at Barry, we are going to be hitting the recruiting trail like crazy.
Right.
But I am super proud of the fact that once we get guys on campus and or get them around our guys, the program and the guys are able to sell themselves a little bit. And that precedent and culture of success on and off the floor is there. Another kind of conversation with former Barry players that we've had is having nothing to do with wins and losses on the floor. Our program is in phenomenal shape academically. I think our program set a record for the fall semester of the school year. I think we had like a 3.46 team GPA, something around there, which is
Sure.
something I was really proud of. I know that came a long way as well. So really the standard of excellence has been there in every area, and definitely something that we're going to strive every day to continue and build on.
In terms of the recruiting footprint, when I look at your current roster, I think most of the kids are from the Southeast. I don't know what
Yep.
kind of radius of the school, but kids from Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
It's in that nature. It seems like most of Division III, which I believe to be more regional, Wabash, DePaul, Illinois Wesleyan, where you're recruiting from a kind of a regional footprint first, and maybe you land some kid from across the country. Who knows? Is that fair to
Yeah.
say that your home base is kind of near campus in the surrounding states?
I think it is. Yeah, that's been our experience here recently. Um, we've had some kids from Florida. We've had an Indiana kid. I'm sure I'm going to be leaving guys out, but kind of like you mentioned, there will be every now and then. You're able to find the right fit for Barry in a lot of different places, but um, naturally, and I think that's what Barry as an institution has done such a good job of just positioning itself in the mid South and the Southeast.
Yeah.
Folks know about Barry even before I mentioned men's basketball, and again, that's a huge benefit to our athletic department. Is that Barry has such a good reputation down here, but I would say regionally that has kind of been our bread and butter lately.
Yeah, of course, the flip side of that are schools like Wheaton and the CCIW that recruits the whole
Sure,
country, the NESCACs,
no
the
doubt.
UAA. There's many D3s that recruit all over the country. I think the majority are schools like Barry. I think
Yep.
that's the majority of D3s. Um, you mentioned scheduling, and I wanted to get your take as we kind of start to wrap up. But you played a great schedule. You get left at the Pool C table the year before, 25 and
Yeah.
3,
Yeah.
14 and 0. You get left at the Pool C table. Actually, I'm not even sure you were left at the Pool C table. I'm not even sure you were at the table. I think you were stuck behind multiple teams, never even got a sniff in Region 6 because of your strength of schedule. So then you go out, and this past year, you guys played Roanoke, Emory, Maryville, Mary Hardin Baylor, Trine, Calvin, Christopher Newport, among others. Incredible non-conference schedule. So now that you're the head guy, there's another wrinkle, which is that
Hmm.
the system's changing. It sounds like we're moving to
Sure.
this NPI, NCAA Power Index, which, I'm not an expert of. I'm open to it. I'm open to it working and being great, but we don't quite know yet if that NPI rewards the resume that you had when you got left out, or if it
Hmm.
rewards the resume you had this past year. Does that make it
Right.
challenging to figure out who to schedule, or are you going to keep scheduling like you just did this past year? I know that's a loaded question early on, but any thoughts on that early?
Yeah, I do have some thoughts. The first thing I would say is, we recognize how challenging of a job NCAA tournament selection at Division III is. One thing that, as a coaching staff, we're really aware of. I don't know how many people, probably a lot of people listening, are aware of, but a lot of folks in general who are fans of college sports don't realize Division III is the largest division in the
Yeah,
country with
yeah,
the biggest number of schools. What a hard job to get 400, 430, whatever teams, however many teams there are, and choose um,
22.
19, 22 at larges. So It probably never is, and maybe never will be 100% perfect system. But to start to answer your question, I think one thing that it taught us this year, um, is it was a benefit for our team and it made our team better, no matter what
Yeah.
it would have done for our resume
Yep.
or what pool C or if we didn't win our conference tournament. And this is something I will share or steal from Mick and his coaching philosophy and one of his core values. The goal needs to be up for our team to be the best it can be by the end of the season. In different years, that's going to look like different things. But there's no doubt that this year our team was the best it could be by the end of the season, and a large part of that was the schedule. I think one detail I would add is early on and up to about the middle, maybe later into conference play part of our season, we had a ton of injuries and illnesses and sicknesses that we were dealing with, and in October, November, we had one student athlete that missed the entire season that never was able to play. So
Sure.
maybe I should say in September or October, looking at our roster, really never had that group until February-ish. So maybe some growing pains along the way, but it was a great opportunity. And that's how our guys looked at it this past year, to grow and get better, and some younger guys thrown in the mix right away. So I think that had a lot to do with why we were able to make so much growth. So to try to get back to your question about how that impacts scheduling, I think that will be my first objective, is what's going to help our team year to year reach that team's and that
Sure.
group's potential. I would say, I think there are some built-in challenges and wrinkles for teams geographically in Division 3. There just aren't
Yeah.
as many teams down here in
Without
the South,
question.
and
Without
so
question.
yeah, that's always going to be something. Are we able and willing to travel, and vice versa? Can we get teams down here, or at a school a couple hours from us that's in the South? So that's just kind of the reality of Division 3 and how
Yeah.
schools or where schools are located. So that will always be a wrinkle to it as well, I think.
Yeah, and look, in my opinion, and you don't need to listen to me because I've never coached a game in my life, but I will say that if you look at the teams that end up winning the national championship, I would guarantee you that almost all of them have played a great schedule throughout the year. If you look at,
Mhm.
like, look what Trine did this past year. Look at that schedule they
Sure.
played.
Yep.
Look at Christopher Newport. You could just keep going back, and every team that cuts down the nets in Fort Wayne and before that Salem, almost all of them played a really strong schedule
Yeah.
along the way. And like you said, it's not just about your resume or your NPI or whatever it's going to be called now, but it's about making your team better. And kudos to the schedule you guys played this past year. You guys played great basketball, I think, due in large part to all the tests you had, including, some of those you lost, right? You lost games, but you learned from them. And I know you're in a challenging situation geographically with scheduling, but sounds like you're up for the challenge. Hey, this has really been cool, Matt, and I really do. I'm very, very happy for you that you've got this opportunity. You've been working so hard to get to this point. Really looking forward to seeing what you do at Barry and kind of keeping this program rolling along and even taking it to new heights. It's been a blast to talk to you today. What would you leave everyone with? We're going to have, some folks from Barry. We're going to have people from around Division 3 tuning in, maybe people from Bishop Chatard tuning in. You never know where the people are going to be watching this. What would you, Matt Richter, leave everyone with today on the QCast?
Yeah, I'm just so excited again, and grateful and humbled to get the opportunity that I have here at Barry. And I would tell a whole bunch of those people that you mentioned thanks, because they've helped me in more ways than they probably realize along the way. Certainly every head coach I've worked for, I think I've been able to mention all of them, but starting with Coach Sless at UNO, and then Coach Cole here at Barry, Coach Brummett at Wabash, and obviously Coach Hedgepeth most recently at Barry. They've taught me a lot on and off the court. They've all made me better, and I'll probably bother them all a whole bunch this coming year, asking them for advice and probably be stealing a lot of what they did behind closed doors as well. But I'm just thankful for everybody's that kind of has poured into me along the way, and just really excited to keep pouring into our guys here at Barry. I think they're the best asset about this place is the guys that I get to work with every day, and I'm thrilled to do that, and I'm ready to get to work.
Well, it will be a lot of work. I know how busy that you are right now with all of the aspects that have come with this new gig that you have. So wish you the best of luck. For those tuning into the QCast here, we'll have another brand new head coach as Coach McGee, the new coach at North Park, is going to join me, I believe, this coming Friday. So we'll talk to another coach, and I think this is the time of year where it's interesting to hear these stories. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. This was episode number 50 of season 4, and we're not done yet. So we're going to keep this thing rolling in season 4. Coach Richter, thank you so much, and best of luck to you and the Barry Vikings.
Oh, thanks, Bob. Appreciate the opportunity to be on, and again, thanks for all that you do for Division III. We love it. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt.